What if history's greatest secrets were not lost to time, but simply hidden in plain sight along the edges of forgotten coastlines? Picture yourself moving through moonlit mist, the smell of salt and ancient stone rising as you brush aside the dust of ages. Imagine stepping onto a windswept dock, a map in hand, tracing lines drawn millennia ago. The names have faded, but the positions remain, almost as if the ancients planned their cities not for survival, but for something deeper: control and ambition. Each port calls out with its own riddle. Why did Alexandria's lighthouse shine so far into the night? What made Carthage a phoenix rival to Rome itself? How could Tyre survive alone at sea, only to choose its isolation over safety? And in the desert heart, how did Petra conceal so much wealth from the world's gaze, yet balance on the brink of oblivion? Some cities vanished with shifting tides, some rose anew when rivers turned away. Others, like Guangzhou, Venice, Zeila, became crossroads where fortunes turned on whispers and wind. But beneath these stones and stories runs a thread of deliberate wonder. Why do the most strategically placed ports hint at mysteries modern geopoliticians struggle to explain? Are these alignments accident or ancient intelligence? Tonight, you are the explorer, the voice in the ruins, the witness to these riddles, retracing the path where lost empires locked their secrets to tide and time. Step forward. Every answer waits beyond the next horizon. The mist was pale gold on the water as I drifted in from the Mediterranean, drawn by a presence older than memory and brighter, somehow, than the morning sun. In the hush before dawn, you do not see Alexandria at first, you feel it. The sea changes texture, the salt grows dense, and something, just at the edge of all your senses, tells you that you are steering toward the fulcrum of worlds. Out there, where the waves grow insistent, stood the lighthouse, the Pharos, built more than 2,000 years ago. Imagine it by firelight, its beacon blazing from a tower so tall travelers claimed its halo reached the stars. For centuries, they came from Athens, from Tyre, from the delta far upriver, seeking that solace. To find home, you needed only to look for light. Alexandria never needed to shout. From the first, it was designed as a gathering, not a fortress. Alexander the Great walked the sandbar in 331 BCE, the wind whipping his cloak, his eyes already seeing harbors, quays, granaries, and palaces. He chose not just a coastline, but a crossing. This was the north edge of Egypt, where the Nile dissolved into marsh and swamp, where traders and warriors had debated and bartered for centuries before a pharaoh's name was ever carved here. And Alexander understood that if you linked this river to this sea, you would make a hinge that could open or close the fortunes of empires. The first stones were laid with purpose. The city was drawn in geometry, streets running true, each angle deliberate, every wall a line connecting the riches of Africa with the desires of Europe and the ambitions of Asia. You could stand on the waterfront and watch sails appear from the horizon, grain ships groaning with wheat from the black silt of the Nile, galleys swollen with olive oil, with parchment, with purple dye. Gold clattered in the storerooms. In the alleys, voices tangled in languages from every compass point. And at every turn, you caught that ancient scent: old cedar, brine, spices spilling from 1,000 baskets. The lighthouse itself, even now, centuries after it fell, people speak of it as if it might still rise from the foam. Marble blocks stacked 90 meters tall, bronze mirrors built to magnify the flame, spiral ramps winding upward. When storms battered the coast, the whole harbor pulsed with shadows thrown by the beacon. It was safety, it was warning, and beneath, divers even now find the drowned stones and statues, testimony to the reach of Alexandria's dream. But a port is never just a place. It is a machine for weaving destinies. Here, philosophers debated in cool courtyards, doctors studied at the great library, and priests charted the motions of the heavens. Ships brought scrolls and papyri, carrying ideas between civilizations as eagerly as they carried silk or tin. Cleopatra walked these halls, and Julius Caesar too. Age after age, Alexandria was crossroads, stage and witness to alliances and betrayals, both grand and unseen. Yet for all its splendor, I found that the essential secret of Alexandria is not its ruins or its wars. It is its invitation. Travelers and conquerors alike felt compelled to return, drawn home by a light that was never simply fire or stone. It was a promise that here at the water's edge, where continents touch, something new can always begin if you are willing to be changed. As the sky turned rose and the first gulls wheeled over the whitecaps, I understood why the maps still give this place pride of position. Alexandria was not just a port, it was a threshold. And every threshold is the start of another journey. Across the water, unseen yet certain, another harbor awaited, promising its own story, its own designs upon the tides. Morning arrives fierce on the coast of Tunisia. The light scatters off ancient stones, casting long shadows that reach out like the memory of empires. Carthage stands here, or what is left of it, where the waves break against the harbor's ghostly walls. You walk into the heart of a city that was more than myth, a city so determined its ashes once threatened to reignite more fiercely than the flame that destroyed it. On these shores, the Phoenicians first put down roots nearly 3,000 years ago. They measured the coast with keen eyes, saw the crossing between Sicily and Africa, and made a choice that would reverberate through centuries. Carthage was never a city of accident. It was precision incarnate. The outer harbor welcomed merchant ships from every corner of the Mediterranean. Pepper, ivory, and gold arrived from Africa, tin from Britain, papyrus from Egypt. Yet behind the bustle of trade, a secret waited, the inner sanctuary, a circular basin designed for war. Protected from storms, hidden from spies, 200 Carthaginian warships could be readied unseen, their oars poised like wings in shadow. I found myself tracing the outlines of those ancient harbors, straining for the echo of command, the cries of traders haggling for amphorae. The air, too, seemed tinged by old ambition. Carthage played the long game, always attentive to what connected and divided. It was the center wedded to the edge, a crossroads that held Mediterranean corridors in its palm. Rome saw the threat. From across the narrowing sea, the young republic gazed east and west and realized that the path to empire ran straight through Carthage. What followed was a contest unlike any before. 3 full wars, legions landed with swords drawn, grain ships burned, merchant families banished, yet Carthage survived, always rearranging its fortunes as one might shift timber in a rising gale. Even when defeat loomed, when salt was scattered on the fields as a curse, the city's story refused to vanish. Memory in Carthage is layered and restless. It is found in the cut stone docks, in the mosaics of thunder and lions, in shattered amphorae whose clay still whispers of distant rain. Between the burnt cinders sprout green shoots. Even the gardens bear witness, defiant in their color to a place that has remembered how to start over. Staring out toward Sicily, you see what the Romans finally saw, a strait so narrow the wind seems to carry voices from the opposite shore. Carthage's masters understood the value of position. Geography is the silent hand. It draws boundaries beyond the power of armies. This port was always the lock and the key. Whoever held it could open the doors to two worlds or slam them shut forever. Even now, the sea sings of old rivalries. Scholars debate in the ruined marketplaces. Broken columns reflect the red of sunset and the passage of time. Clues surface: a shipwreck buried under silt, a fragment of bronze stamped with the sign of Baal, coins both Roman and Carthaginian found mingling in the same grave. Yet with every answer, you find another question buried in the sand. What truths were lost in fire? What secrets did Rome hope to erase that Carthage still quietly keeps? You sense that endings here are never final. Each tide washes new fragments to the shore, the promise that no city, no power, can ever be wholly erased. As dusk falls and the phoenix red sky glimmers above the bay, you realize Carthage is not finished. It was shaped by struggle, rebuilt by loss. It endures, restless and unresolved. A city whose ruins hint at battles yet to come, and whose stories will lead any true explorer onward, to the next harbor, the next unanswered mystery that beckons from the horizon. Dawn paints the coast of Lebanon with streaks of copper and pale blue. The air is tinged with salt and secrets, and the remnants of Tyre rise from the sea like a question held for millennia. Here, the rocks and silent columns mark a place both connected and severed. You step onto the causeway and sense the edges of two worlds, the ancient island, once untouchable, and the bustle of the mainland pressing against it. Tyre began as an island deliberately set apart. The Phoenicians, master mariners of the Levant, chose this site not for comfort, but for control. From offshore, their city lay hidden behind deep water and treacherous currents, sheltering fleets that roamed far beyond sight. Two harbors faced opposing winds. One greeted the north, open to the routes of Sidon and Byblos, while the other turned south, ready to reach Egypt and the mouth of the Red Sea. Such precision was not chance. Every quay, every slipway, every ancient stone was calculated to harness the wind's pulse and the ever-shifting mood of the waves. I walked the old breakwaters, the stones uneven beneath my boots, and imagined the Phoenician traders launching ships carved from resilient cedar. They sailed out with dyes, with glass, with timber destined to build palaces in far-off cities, their cargoes claimed by kings accustomed to the color and wealth only Tyre could provide. This island was both gate and refuge, a pivot for commerce that made distant lands seem suddenly near. Yet Tyre's isolation held a deeper meaning. When invaders arrived, the city simply watched from its waterlocked sanctuary. Armies raged against the tide, unable to cross. For hundreds of years, Tyre remained unconquered, its walls echoing with the laughter of traders and the prayers of priests. They built temples to Melkart, their god of merchants and voyagers, and believed the waters themselves kept the city blessed. That blessing would falter with the coming of Alexander the Great. He saw, as few before him had done, the power in location. During a dramatic siege in the year 332 BCE, Tyre's greatest strength became its undoing. Alexander ordered a monumental causeway built from the debris of the mainland, stone upon stone, until the sea surrendered and the island stood exposed. The harbors were breached, the walls fell, and Tyre's autonomy was washed away with the tide. Yet the city's story did not end in surrender. Even as the causeway joined Tyre to the continent, the old island remained resolute, rebuilt, reshaped, ever the center of trade and passage. In the centuries that followed, the harbors filled with new voices, Greek, Roman, Byzantine, Arab, each leaving traces in the stones and the faded mosaics. Fishermen and sailors whispered that the island itself seemed restless, forever longing for the isolation it once knew. Among the ruins, you find evidence of hope and loss mingling in unexpected ways. Purple shells still pile up near ancient dye vats, remnants of an industry that colored the robes of emperors. Old coins, worn smooth, surface after storms, stamped with ships and bold-headed gods. Each artifact hints at Tyre's choice to exist at the crossroads, to command the currents rather than retreat from them. Yet Tyre's resilience was always tinged with sacrifice. By linking itself to the land, it invited both prosperity and peril. The city thrived, but its aura of mystery faded. The waves grew familiar, the harbors busy, but the sense of sacred solitude lingered, shimmering unseen just below the surface. Today, the sea nibbles away at the old stones, and fishermen cast nets beneath the shadow of vanished towers. Tyre's lesson endures. To survive, sometimes you must let go of what once set you apart, even if it means your own drowning. As sunset glows across the water, you sense new mysteries lurking just beyond the horizon, where another port waits, equally inevitable, equally ready to reveal the ways in which geography might shape fate for centuries to come. The first rays of morning found me wandering the ancient streets of Ephesus, stones warmed by centuries of sun, the echoes of traders and travelers still humming in the air. Close your eyes and you will hear carts creaking over marble pavement, voices haggling in half a dozen languages, the distant rumble of ships unloading silks and spices. Yet the sea, the great anchor of this port's fortune, lies miles away, a memory fading behind a veil of fertile plains. Ephesus was built for greatness. Greek colonists settled this edge of Anatolia, watching tides sweep up the river mouth toward broad marshland. They saw the shadow of nearby mountains and the promise of the Aegean, and decided that their city would be a bridge between worlds. The harbor blossomed in tandem with the city, sheltered by breakwaters, lined with warehouses, bustling with Roman galleys, Egyptian grain ships, Persian caravans, and traders from every known point on the map. To walk through Ephesus is to trace the ambitions of empires. Civic squares, towering statues, and the dazzling library of Celsus all point to a people who believed that commerce and culture would never end. The city became a beacon for pilgrims journeying to the Temple of Artemis, sacred and luminous, one of the wonders of antiquity. Here, life moved in cycles of abundance and hope, always drawn back to the harbor where fortunes arrived and were spent. Yet nature, patient and inexorable, always holds the final word. The river, swollen with silt, began its slow work. For centuries, its muddy bounty crept toward the coastline, swallowing the harbor inch by inch, season by season. Each year, merchants found the water draw shallower, the passage less certain, the docks resting almost out of reach. The engineers of Rome and Byzantium tried to halt the river's advance, building walls, digging new channels, summoning the wisdom of generations. But the river was relentless, shaping the future with every stone it carried and every grain it deposited. I walked the long road from the ancient quays toward the present-day shorelines. Fields of wheat and poppy sway where the harbor once welcomed fleets. Herds graze on what used to be bustling piers. The city's doors stand open to the sky, confronted by the reality that the sea, its once steadfast companion, now lingers far away, lured by a shifting tongue of land. Among the ruins, there is both sorrow and admiration. The loss of the harbor was not the end for Ephesus, but a transformation. Markets changed, alliances shifted, temples fell into silence. Yet the spirit of movement, of adaptation, endured. The city found new ways to trade, new paths through land where it once relied on ships. Merchants and their stories walked inland, carrying with them memories of tides and salt. Over generations, the shifting geography became a lesson etched into the ground. When I paused beside a collapsed colonnade, a scrap of ancient mosaic gleaming at my feet, I realized Ephesus was not a victim of fate. It had learned to walk away from the sea, trading its old power for resilience. This harbor, unlike any other, had not simply vanished. It had journeyed from the coast to the desert, following the currents of time more deftly than any ship could follow the wind. And as I watched the sunrise ignite the marble city in soft gold and quiet shadow, I sensed that every port after Ephesus would carry some part of its story. A reminder that if you listen to the earth and heed the call of change, you can shape your own future even as the tides retreat. Somewhere further east, another harbor waits, its fate balanced on the edge of geography and ambition, eager to reveal how power and persistence carve their marks on the world. Sometimes, a morning in ancient Antioch arrives heavy with possibility. The air itself seems to hold the weight of old alliances and rivalries, scented with river mist and smoke from bustling markets. You step through the remnants of city gates, all weathered marble and battered mosaics, and notice the feel of Crossroads beneath your feet, a place where history did not just happen, but collided. Antioch rose from a vision of connection. In the wake of Alexander's empire, Seleucus founded this city along the banks of the Orontes River, giving it the gift of geography. Look to the west and the Mediterranean beckons, steely and wide. Glance east and you find the great deserts, the gateway to Persia, the roads that coil deep into the riches of Mesopotamia. Turn north, and the Anatolian plateau extends toward forests and mountains. Each direction feels deliberate, chosen for reach as much as for commerce. Standing by the colonnaded streets, you sense the echo of three civilizations: Greeks, Romans, and Persians. Antioch was a handshake, sometimes warm, sometimes wary. Here, diplomats and traders shared tables with generals and philosophers. Caravans arrived with silk and spice, gold and glass, bearing news of wars and the splinters of treaties. The port itself, once a busy hive on the river's edge, now a whisper under farmland. Was the lifeblood of this exchange? Ships brought goods upstream, then onward. I wandered through cool courtyards, their fountains brimming with water drawn from distant hills. The laughter of children mingled with the thunder of markets where languages mixed in a tapestry of negotiation. Beneath the surface, old tensions hummed. Antioch's streets had carried legions before dawn, watched rulers crowned, and seen banners fall beneath foreign standards. The city was never only one kind of place, never fully Greco-Roman, nor entirely Persian or Syrian. Antioch's splendor was not just in her coins or her festivals. It was found in the way people adapted, folded new customs into their daily lives, welcoming strangers while remembering ancient feuds. The temples honored gods from every pantheon. Scholars debated the stars, physicians traded remedies, and artisans crafted lamps and jewelry coveted from far beyond the city walls. One day, Christians would gather here, reshaping faith across continents, proof of a city that made new beginnings possible. Yet, for all Antioch's power and resilience, the city always lived in the shadow of risk. Earthquakes split its houses, invasions tumbled its towers, rivers flooded streets until the stones wept mud and sorrow. Trade sometimes slowed, and routes shifted, but Antioch endured, not by standing still, but by adapting with every turn. Merchants found new ways to bring goods, generals new tactics to guard the gates, and refugees new reasons to stay. The handshake never broke entirely. As evening falls, casting long shadows over the Orontes and painting the stones with honeyed amber, a feeling rises that ancient Antioch is not just remembered, but still alive in every crossroads, every bustling market, every time two worlds dare to meet in hope instead of fear. The city's lesson lingers. Greatness isn't in being the strongest or the richest, but in knowing how to hold hands across borders, shaping alliances that might someday change the world. Further up the river's winding path, another port stirs, setting its own challenge for those who would understand how proximity becomes destiny, and how a single crossroads can decide the fates of empires waiting in the wings. The journey inland leads you towards silence, the kind shaped by wind and stone rather than waves and harbor bells. Petra waits beyond the horizon, nestled in the heart of deserts and ravines where time itself seems to hesitate. Your boots crunch over ancient trails, grains of rose-red sand caught in every crease, each step carrying you deeper into a labyrinth built by both nature and ingenuity. Petra was not found. It was hidden. Caravans converged toward this improbable oasis between mountain walls, where spring spilled cold water into hollows and shade lingered late into the afternoon. The Nabateans, masters of desert cunning, chose this place not by accident, but by knowing precisely how much could be concealed and how much must always remain in plain sight. Their city was born behind barriers, a maze of cliffs and secret passageways. What seemed lifeless from afar revealed itself as life-bringing justice passage. Walk the Sikh, Petra's narrow entrance, and the world shifts. Stone crowds around you, towering higher than the tallest mast, painted with streaks of yellow, crimson, and violet. At dawn, the light catches carved facades, temples and tombs sculpted straight from raw rock, their columns and pediments gleaming momentarily and then plunging back into shadow. You realize quickly that water is the true treasure here, channeled through ancient aqueducts and cisterns so precisely that even the arid wind cannot steal it away. I sat by the ruins of an old marketplace, the air thick with scents of resin and worn leather, imagining the parade of traders who once gathered in Petra's heart. Goods arrived in abundance: incense from Arabia, silk from the distant east, ivory and pepper ferried by camel and carried by hope across dangerous sands. Each caravan brought stories and rumors, carried news of kingdoms lost and cities newly built, yet all routes eventually bent toward Petra, as if drawn by gravity stronger than mere commerce. Petra's isolation was its strength and allure. Enemies struggled to approach, lost in twisting canyons and haunted by thirst. Locals guarded their secrets with care, speaking just loud enough for allies and letting strangers find only echoes. The city thrived as a mediator, a silent judge for disputes between empires, a place where taxes were low and fortunes could flourish, all beneath the watchful eye of desert stars. Yet for all its wisdom and power, Petra was built with a subtle fragility. Floods sometimes thundered through ravines with the fury of forgotten gods. The water that gave life could also drown it. Trade routes shifted, and the desert's fingers stretched wider. The city, magnificent in its concealment, found itself slowly left behind as new paths and ports rose to prominence. Its stone grandeur faded into legend, the gaps between columns filled with silence and drifting sand. As I traced the shadows cast by monumental tombs, I uncovered hints of what lay beneath the city's pride, the longing to remain hidden, secure from the outside world. Petra had chosen concealment and paid the price in solitude. Yet the secret it kept was never one of mere wealth or power. It was the knowledge that the world's riches, both material and intangible, can sometimes only flourish in places few would think to search. When dusk cools the valley and the painted cliffs flush with deep crimson, you sense that Petra's mystery is far from exhausted. Somewhere, another caravan approaches. Sand stirs with the promise of new arrivals. The ancient city waits, silent but ready, for those who wish to understand how secrets can protect, enrich, and endure, and how the next port beyond the desert might reveal a new chapter written in both distance and daring. There's a chill in the early morning as you stand on the seaward walls of Constantinople, the city whose stones divide continents and unite centuries. The Bosphorus sparkles just beyond reach, a narrow braid of water winding between Europe and Asia. The strait is close enough that, on clear days, you can almost count the fishing boats crossing from one world into another. Each crossing is a reminder this place is not simply a point on a map. It is the lock holding the key to empires. Founded more than 1,600 years ago by Constantine the Great, this city drew its lifeblood from the pulse of the waves and the convergence of ambition. To the north, the Black Sea opens its arms, cradling cargoes of grain and ships heavy with timber. To the south, the Mediterranean sprawls wide, its ports and islands strung like pearls. Constantinople sits exactly where these ambitions must pass, where every captain and merchant prays the current will carry them safely through the narrows that decide their fate. I walked along the ramparts, stones battered but steadfast, imagining the echoes of centuries flowing by. These walls were built to endure every siege, every storm. The Golden Horn Harbor, sheltered and deep, invited fleets from every horizon. Byzantine emperors and later Ottoman sultans poured treasures into the city's defenses, knowing that geography alone was not always enough. Yet more often than not, the land itself made their case. The peninsula's sharp promontory and the swift currents made Constantinople nearly invulnerable from the sea, a challenge to any navy that tried to approach. Trade flourished in the city like few others in history. Spices from India, furs from Russia, silks drifting in from China, all found their way to markets crowded with sunlight and color. Scholars debated under the domes of Hagia Sophia, artisans forged icons and jewelry in narrow alleys, priests and pilgrims filled the streets with hope and song. The city became a repository for secrets, for wisdom, for treasure, both tangible and intangible. But power always brings desire. Armies and navies circled the city for generations, drawn by its promise. In 12 centuries, Constantinople was besieged more than 24 times by Persians, Arabs, Crusaders, and finally the Ottomans. Each assault tested not just stone and steel, but the unyielding logic of geography. As the great chain was stretched across the Golden Horn, as fireships darkened the waters, as cannons thundered against ancient walls, the city's defenders learned hard lessons in patience and resolve. What remains today is far more than ruins. It is the memory of ambition met by endurance. It is a city that thrived because it learned how to adapt, how to make room for every language, every faith, every new arrival drawn to its crossroads. From shadowed alleys to glittering towers, every stone recalls moments of triumph and heartbreak. The city's lesson is simple. To hold the gate, you must understand every path that leads toward it, and every possibility that waits just beyond. As twilight burns gold along the Bosphorus, a hush falls over the city. The gate remains not just in walls and water, but in the spirit of Constantinople's people, who have always known how to lock and unlock the ways between worlds. And somewhere along those restless straits, another harbor stirs, ready to reveal its own secrets, its own command of the corridors where history and geography intertwine. The journey is not finished, and the next chapter lies just over the horizon in waters that promise both passage and peril. Daybreak comes soft and quiet to the jagged shores of Muscat. The scent of brine hangs in the air, mingling with dust that drifts down rocky slopes, as if the mountains themselves are exhaling after centuries of watching over the harbor. You trace the coastline on foot and discover the entrance to Muscat has always been a secret kept by stone and silence. Only by rounding the last promontory does the city reveal itself, a sheltered embrace where the land folds inward, sheltering ships and stories from the open sea. Muscat's position along the Arabian Peninsula was not chosen at random. Ancient sailors, guided by the rhythm of monsoon winds and the stubborn terrain, understood that security came not from high walls, but from nature's hand. Steep crags rise on every side, cloaking the harbor in shadows and guarding its waters from storms. No enemy fleet could easily approach here unannounced. From distance, Muscat appears as nothing more than a wrinkle on the coastline, forgotten and serene. Step closer, and you realize it is a crossroads waiting for those who recognize subtlety over spectacle. In the cool hours before midday, you wander among stone forts, their cannons long dormant but commanding the same view centuries of mariners studied with anxious hope. The docks themselves whisper of an age when copper, frankincense, and pearls with origins deep within Oman's valleys, made their way north to Persia, India, and even China. Muscat's merchants grew wise from the constant passing of goods, and the city earned a reputation for hospitality. Sharp negotiations gave way to generous feasts. Sea-worn travelers welcomed in vaulted courtyards hung with lanterns and tapestries. Yet it was the mastery of wind and current that made Muscat legendary. Omani navigators read the surface of the water with a precision that bordered on magic. They tracked arrivals weeks before sails crested the horizon, knowing how monsoons would drive ships to seek shelter, how tides would funnel merchants toward harbor, how weather would bend both risk and reward in Muscat's direction. The city thrived on anticipation. Its people learned when generosity could bring new alliances and when discretion protected secrets more valuable than gold. Muscat's story, however, also carries the marks of invasion and resilience. Portuguese ships arrived in the 16th century, their cannons roaring, claiming control of this pivotal port. The city endured bombardment and occupation, yet managed to reclaim its place, adapting foreign tactics and ideas while never surrendering its core identity shaped by mountains and water. Over time, Muscat became not only a stopping point, but a fulcrum where cultures met, mingled, and sometimes clashed, each leaving a trace in stonework, in recipes, even in the language spoken on quiet evenings when the sea seems to hush all debate. Beyond the fortified walls lies the open question of change. The hills shift with every season. Rockfalls redraw entrances. Silt reshapes the shoreline in small but meaningful ways. Fishers still tell tales of lost anchorages and unexpected depths, and the city's pulse is measured by how well its people listen to the signals that geography sends. Muscat remains not static but supple, always ready to turn challenge into opportunity. As the sun lowers and paints the city in burnished gold, you look beyond the breakwaters to the distant horizon. Ships still arrive, looking for that hidden haven, hoping for safety and trade. The mountains stand silent, patient as always, letting those who know the way in and keeping those who do not at a respectful distance. The journey continues, and somewhere beyond Muscat's secretive embrace, another port waits to be revealed, mastered not by isolation, but by the balance of connection and control that only true explorers can recognize. Morning in Ostia arrives with a subtle hush, broken only by the distant call of gulls and the faint rippling of the Tiber's waters. The ancient stones lie warmed by sunlight, yellow and gray, their cracks filled with the dust of centuries. As you step through Roman archways, you feel the city waking not to conquest, but to the rhythms of commerce and tide, where every grain of sand and every cargo-laden barge tells a story of connection and power. Ostia was born from the river. Long before paved streets and marble temples, the Tiber carried silt and promise from the heartland of Italy to the edge of the Mediterranean. To the Romans, the ability to command this waterway meant more than just defense. It meant survival, nourishment, and a gateway into the ever-expanding world beyond. The city emerged 15 miles from Rome, strategically positioned where the river met the sea, a threshold between the inland city and the salted breadth of empire. Walk the length of Ostia's abandoned docks, and you could almost hear the shouts of stevedores balancing amphorae of oil and wine, the clatter of carts transporting Egyptian grain, Spanish garum, and African marbles. Warehouse after warehouse lines the ancient boulevards, their labyrinthine vaults designed to store a season's bounty. Olive oil, grains, textiles, spices piled high and counted with a discipline that would rival a modern ledger. Life in Ostia was measured in cargo. Each vessel that arrived from the sea found the city both a welcoming host and a meticulous steward. Yet Ostia's brilliance was as much in what it enabled as what it hoarded. Rome, perched further upstream, could not survive on local harvests alone. Without Ostia, the capital would have been a city starved for fuel, for bread, for the luxuries that adorned its palaces. Special riverboats moved shipments inland, their flat bottoms designed to glide over shallow depths and shifting currents. The river, sometimes benign and sometimes raging, was both highway and hazard, friend and foe. I wandered through the forum, listening to the whisper of wind that echoes where crowds once gathered. In Ostia, the merchant and the senator strolled side by side, both dependent on the city's unique alchemy, a port that was not quite sea, not quite land, yet vital to each. Guilds of bakers, shipwrights, and longshoremen traced their roots to this place, their influence woven through marble and mural alike. But Ostia's legacy is one of constant adaptation. Rivers change course, shores rise and fall. Over time, the Tiber's mouth shifted, leaving the city stranded amid marsh and meadow. Trade routes veered, harbors silted, ships bypassed what had once been an unstoppable artery. Yet the memory lingers in every sunken dock and moss-draped column. Ostia did not disappear, it was transformed, becoming first a place of retreat, then of memory, then of discovery for those who would listen to the lessons of the landscape. In the waning light, with the river reflecting the gold and rose of the setting sun, you realize what Ostia truly gave to Rome. Resilience born from flow, flexibility rooted in necessity, a reminder that the fortunes of empires are often determined not at the center but at the edges, in the silent patience of currents and the tireless labor of those who serve the tide. The story does not end at the river's mouth. Beyond Ostia, other harbors rise and fall, each with their own rules, their own gifts and warnings. And as the evening deepens, you feel drawn onward, compelled to search out the next place where geography meets ambition, where a river's journey might spark the birth of something greater. The Indian Ocean breeze carries the memory of great distances, and as you step onto the coral-studded shores of Mogadishu, its currents feel thick with tales. Here, the city rises out of sand and surf, whitewashed walls gleaming in the morning sun, as if the land itself is revealing a treasure at the edge of Africa. Mogadishu's secret is not just its stones or its markets, but the rhythm of the winds that have shaped every life and fortune here. For more than 1,000 years. Mogadishu did not set itself at the world's edge by accident. Its founders read the winds with the wisdom of poets and scientists, timing their harvests, their prayers, and their sails to the turning of monsoons. When the winds blow out of the northeast, ships from Arabia, Persia, and India sweep down the African coast, their hulls full of cotton, porcelain, spices, and ideas. When the seasons shift, the winds change course, and these same vessels return home, laden with ivory, gold, rare woods, and stories of adventure whispered along moonlit decks. In the heart of the city, I wandered narrow lanes worn smooth by centuries of trade. Markets bloom like coral reefs, alive with color, sound, and scent. Saffron, incense, and sandalwood mingle with the salt of the ocean breeze. Merchants speak in many tongues, their deals punctuated by laughter and the metallic ring of coins from distant dynasties. Yet all of it, every spice, every song, flows in time to the monsoon. That rhythm is the unwritten law of Mogadishu, governing the migration of ships and the fortunes of families. Here, architecture itself tells the story of generations past. Coral stone houses cluster close, windows open to invite the sea air and the promise of approaching sails. Minarets rise beside carved doorways, their patterns borrowed from both Africa and Arabia, reminders that the city's culture has always been a blend, never quite any one thing or another. Mogadishu's greatest strength was always its openness, to sun, to wind, and to strangers. Yet prosperity also attracted rivals. Pirates lurked beyond the reefs. Sultans and merchant princes vied for control. The city endured cycles of siege and splendor, weathering the ambitions of those who would claim it by force. Each time it was the monsoon that betrayed or delivered, cutting off supply, or bringing timely rescue, the sky itself deciding whether the city would fall or thrive. As I listen to old sailors reminisce on the breakwaters, I sense that Mogadishu's soul lies in its knowledge of change. Nothing is permanent. Every arrival brings departure. Every season offers a promise and a threat. The abundance of one year may vanish in the storms of the next. Wealth here was never amassed solely for show, but always with an ear tuned to the next wind, a readiness to move, to adapt, to begin again. When dusk falls, the air cools, and the clamor of the markets recedes. The ocean remains restless, waiting for a new season to turn. You stare east over the swelling water, knowing that as long as the monsoons return, so will fortune, so will hope. So will the endless dance of cultures and goods. Somewhere on the far rim of that horizon, another port prepares to greet the wind, reminding you that great empires may rise and fall, that the patterns of earth and sky endure, always ready to gift the next explorer with secrets worth seeking. At the mouth of the Pearl River, warm mist rises before dawn, softening the outlines of busy wharves and a city both ancient and enduring. Today, Guangzhou is a sprawling metropolis, but beneath the skyline, the old rhythms linger. The shuffle of piles driven deep in river mud, the gentle clink of porcelain, the low voices of merchants waiting for the next tide. Stand on these banks and you can sense the centuries concentrated in the humid air, whispering of a period when all the world's longing to meet China flowed through a single guarded doorway. Guangzhou's place in history was never just a matter of luck. For centuries, emperors and officials debated how much of the outside world to permit within the sealed heart of the Middle Kingdom. The answer, more often than not, was carefully measured restriction, a policy designed to protect but also to profit. Only Guangzhou, perched along a broad delta at the frontier of land and sea, was granted the dubious honor of serving as China's only official foreign port. Its harbor, deep and sheltered, was not just a marketplace, but a final filter, wide enough for the world, yet narrow enough to know every face that passed. Step into the old 13 factories quarter and you step into history's sieve. Foreign sailors, Persian and Arab, and later Portuguese and British, clustered in shady walled compounds, barred from entering the city's core, but welcomed to trade silk, tea, and blue and white ceramics for silver, spices, and secrets. Intense negotiations unfolded beside massive ledgers. Middlemen gathered stories from across the ocean before carefully funneling back only what the state allowed. Guangzhou's overseers cataloged every ship, every bale, every stranger, their records as intricate as any lattice window overlooking the busy river. Yet, despite, or perhaps because of, this careful vigilance, intrigue blossomed. Inventors and translators hid new ideas in crates packed for export. Traders learned how to bargain with subtlety, knowing that trust and suspicion had to live side by side. When something extraordinary arrived, a clock that chimed, a sample of cotton, or a scientific treatise, it was dissected in public, debated by local scholars, shared in hushed private gatherings before the port's doors creaked open once again. For example, trade made Guangzhou wealthy, but wealth never promised ease. Typhoons battered the harbor with regular fury. Customs changed as dynasties fell and rose again. When foreign ambitions grew sharper, some ships arrived with cannon, not just cargo. The city endured sieges and blockades, opium wars and revolutions, each time adapting, rebuilding, welcoming new hands along the quays, but refusing to surrender its essential role as the empire's cautious gatekeeper. I walked beneath weathered eaves, strung with lanterns, passing shops selling goods that had traveled halfway around the world. Guangzhou's lesson is written in the constant movement of the river, the shifting silt that demands every channel be dredged and redrawn. No gate stays locked forever. No window, once opened, can forget the light that enters with the wind. The city remains alert, both guarded and curious, a place that understands how briefly one port can decide who meets, who mingles, and who passes into legend. As darkness folds gently over the delta, lights appear all along the river, invitation and warning, opportunity and remembrance. Somewhere upstream, another harbor will take a different approach to the world, relying not on exclusion but on the risky generosity of open ground. The journey continues, and you follow the river's slow dance, moving always toward another place where commerce and curiosity together build new bridges and stir new dreams. At the slender neck of Greece, where two vast seas nearly touch, Corinth greets the sunrise with a quiet expectation. Wind sweeps off the Gulf of Corinth with the smell of salt and ancient pine, washing over stones that have borne witness to centuries of ambition and ingenuity. Here, the land narrows into an isthmus so thin that sailors believed the gods themselves had pressed Greece between their fingers, creating a shortcut that could change destinies. Corinth built more than just walls and temples. It engineered an escape from danger and delay. When ships arrived from the east, battered by the unpredictable Aegean, their captains faced a choice: risk the turbulent journey around the whole sweep of the Peloponnese, or trust the hands of men who promised passage across the skin of the earth. The city delivered a miracle made of labor and foresight, a paved stone track called the Diokos, stretching across the isthmus for more than 3 miles. Teams rolled vessels on wooden sleds and greased timbers, dragging hulls from one harbor to another in days, not weeks, sparing their crews storms and pirates. I wandered the remnants of this ancient pathway, staring at grooves worn decades deep into marble, imagining the weight of merchant ships, triremes heavy with grain or cargo. You can almost hear the shouts of laborers and the creak of oars and rudders. Alongside this effort, Corinth thrived. Markets bloomed near both shores. On the Saronic Gulf to the east, the Ionian to the west, each alive with traders and sailors grateful for time saved, for risk avoided. The city grew rich not by conquering wide territories, but by mastering a narrow passage. With every ship portaged, loyalty followed, and power flowed inward along the rhythm of the Diolkos. Corinth's greatness was not only practical. Temples to Aphrodite, Apollo, and Poseidon towered over the city, their columns shining in the early light, reminder that commerce and faith are rarely far apart. The Greeks filled these streets with drama and debate, with festivals and athletic games, turning the isthmus into a stage for dialogue between the cities of north and south. Hungry for protection and opportunity, everyone found reason to visit Corinth. The city became a mediator and a crossroads, a place where alliances were formed, marriages arranged, and news spread with astonishing speed. But like every advantage, the Diolkos became a target. Wars erupted over its control. Political rivals and foreign armies coveted the ability to seize ships and shape trade. Defenders raised fortifications, and sometimes the isthmus itself became a border of conflict rather than connection. Yet Corinth adapted, rebuilding what was broken, restoring lines and alliances even as empires fell and rose again. I paused beside the ancient harbor, watching fishermen cast nets over waters once thick with departing vessels. Corinth's lesson is carved into every cracked marble slab. Sometimes it is not the vastness you control, but the narrow passage, where careful planning and collective effort create bridges no storm can erase. The city's legacy is not found in conquest, but in cooperation and ingenuity, a reminder to all explorers that the shortest route between two worlds is often a bold leap built on the backs of those who believe that no distance is true to impassable. As the shadows lengthen across the isthmus and the sun sinks toward the horizon, the air carries the promise of more hidden ways, other harbors, other solutions, other cities waiting to turn geography into opportunity. The journey presses forward, hungry for the next discovery just beyond the boundaries drawn by stone, sea, and imagination. Morning at Adulis is a hush of wind across the Red Sea, the scent of brine rising from tidal pools, and the pulsing heat of Eritrean sun on old stone foundations. You walk among the scattered ruins, the outlines of warehouses melted into the earth, and you feel the vibration of a place once filled with the bustle of vessels and voices. Adulis was never only a dot on the map. It was a turning point where the riches of an entire continent were gathered, sorted, and sent outward to the hungry hands of faraway worlds. Nestled along a coast both rocky and forgiving, Adulis rose to prominence as the seaward arm of the powerful kingdom of Axum. Far beyond the reach of the Sahara and the dense forests of Central Africa, Adulis drew caravans down from the Ethiopian highlands. Here, gold and ivory, frankincense, and exotic skins filled storerooms built to weather intense heat and hurried labor. Livestock, minerals, and stories plodded down ancient trails to reach the salt wind and foreign sails waiting beside quiet inlets. But Adulis was never content to be a mere outpost. Its harbor formed a vital link in an immense chain of commerce that stretched from the Roman Empire to India and Arabia. On any given day, you could hear Latin, Greek, Ge'ez, and Arabic spoken along the bustling quays. Roman glass might glitter beside African obsidian. Chinese silk shared space with carved Aksumite ivory. The city swelled and shrank to the tempo of shifting empires, but its role never wavered. Adulis was the hinge where two worlds met, feeding one's ambition with the bounty of the other. I knelt by broken amphorae baked centuries ago, dust dry in my hands, and traced their markings. Every jar, every coin, every bead is a message. These objects crossed deserts and oceans, their survival evidence of a network both fragile and indomitable. The markets, busy with stevedores and brokers, sparked rumors just as quickly as gold changed hands. Sometimes it was said that elephants laden with treasure departed at dawn, their footprints vanishing into the thorny scrub, reminders that the interior held more secrets than the port could ever explore. To walk in Adulis is to stand at the crossroads of power. Kingdoms learned quickly that whoever controlled the port could tax the world. The Axumites built roads and fortifications, then watched their coffers swell as Roman merchants sent eager ships seeking what only Africa could provide. In return, Adulis became a portal for new ideas, new faiths, and even new technologies, carried on the wind and in the memories of voyagers who paused here before attempting open seas. Yet glory always holds a shadow. The landscape around Adulis whispers stories of loss. Once vital river estuaries shifting, the coastline receding, trade routes faltering as other ports rivaled for influence. Perhaps it was war, perhaps disease, perhaps simple change. The city's decline came quickly, its prosperity vanishing almost without warning. Even so, the bones of this place are not silent. They hold the residue of ambition, of movement. When night falls, moonlight glints on the broken columns still standing sentry over the plain. You sense that the open secret of Adulis is not that it faded, but that every port carries its season, its moment when it is the world's heart. Somewhere down the coast, another harbor is rising, eager to inherit the old routes and ambitions. And as you follow the path away from Adulis's quiet stones, you realize that to feed empires once is to echo through time, your legacy a ripple chasing the horizon ever forward. Venice welcomes the dawn beneath a gauze of mist. Masts of boats tilt gently in the tide, while shadowy buildings rise from the water, their roots buried deep in silt and centuries. You travel by gondola, the only sound the echo of lapping waves against weathered wood. Here, in this improbable city where canals are streets and bridges link the floating world, you sense a crossroads not carved by empires, but conjured by patience and cunning. The founders of Venice arrived as refugees, seeking sanctuary among the shifting marshes and islands of the Lagoon. They built not on solid earth but on pilings of timber, driven so deep that ancient trees became the city's bones. The early Venetians understood that the water was both shield and stage, a natural moat guarding their homes from invaders, and an avenue for trade stretching to every horizon. With every plank set, they defied the limitations of their land. Venice blossomed out of necessity and opportunity. The Adriatic and Mediterranean met at her doorstep, and the Alpine passes funneled European goods toward the city's bustling markets. Ships arrived from Byzantium, Cairo, Flanders, and Genoa, their holds brimming with silks, spices, and silver. The port grew into a labyrinth of docks and warehouses, as intricate as the city's alleys. Venetian merchants calculated profit with the instinct of navigators, their fortunes riding on tides, treaties, and the always shifting sands of diplomacy. You wander the squares in the silvery light, catching the scent of salt, baking bread, and sweet wine. Everywhere are reminders of mastery, the Doge's palace gleaming with gold, the Rialto Bridge spanning the Grand Canal where merchants once settled debts beneath stone arches. The city's architecture betrays years of borrowing and transformation, capturing elements from the Arab world, Byzantium, and the far north. Venice's genius was her ability to blend the new with the ancient, allowing each arrival to shape her future while keeping her core identity elegant and elusive. But every crossroads carries peril. The lagoon's shifting channels demanded constant vigilance. Venetian pilots mapped currents with obsessive care, their knowledge as prized as any gemstone. When plague or war threatened, the water shielded the city, but isolation could breed complacency. The rival cities of the Mediterranean conspired and competed, sending spies, embassies, and fleets to test Venice's resolve. Sometimes the lagoon flooded, swallowing homes, and the city endured by rebuilding, reinforcing, grieving, and celebrating. Venice's power was never merely economic. In her courts, treaties reshaped kingdoms. Her artists painted visions that still dazzle the world. Her shipyards launched galleys that protected the city's interests and rivaled the greatest navies in the Old World. Yet the real lesson is found in the city's attitude toward risk and reward. To live in Venice was to learn to balance on the edge, to make opportunity from uncertainty, to turn water into pathways and mud into foundations. As twilight falls, lanterns flicker to life, casting golden halos on water dense with history. You watch gondoliers navigate narrow alleys, their voices blending with those of historians, sailors, and merchants from centuries past. Venice holds the secret of transformation, the wisdom to turn adversity into advantage, to remain a crossroads long after rivals have faded into obscurity. And just as the moon climbs over the lagoon, you hear distant bells calling explorers onward. Beyond the city's shifting channels, another port awaits, ready to show how geography and persistence build legacies that shine across every tide and every age. The journey gathers itself, eager for what lies around the next watery bend, where crossroads are not found, but made. At daybreak, Zeila stirs beneath the vast sky of the Horn of Africa, its ruins softly gilded by the rising sun. The old city, now nearly silent, sits at the intersection of land and sea, where dusty caravan trails slip down from the Ethiopian highlands to the edge of the Gulf of Aden. You tread these ancient paths, hearing the crunch of salt and sand underfoot, imagining the echo of traders who once wound their way through this narrow corridor. Zeila was their destination, not by chance but by design, a port chosen for its command of landscape as much as its promise of profit. Centuries ago, this place thrived. Incense, coffee, gold, and ivory all traversed Zeila's quays, carried by camels from lush plateaus, then loaded aboard boats bound for Arabia, India, and lands still further afield. To approach Zeila was to cross thresholds, a harrowing descent from cool highlands into searing coastal heat, a transition from rugged earth to wind-rattled sails. Traders anticipated the oasis with relief, but also respect. Zeila's placement at the terminus of converging caravan trails meant it captured the riches and ambitions of entire regions, funneling commerce through a single gate. In the bustling markets, the air must have been thick with languages: Somali, Arabic, Amharic, and Sabaean, spoken beneath woven canopies among piles of hides, baskets of resin, and bolts of shimmering textiles. But just as vital as the goods themselves was the port's role as mediator, a neutral crossroads where alliances formed and rivalries humbled, the city's walls, now crumbling, once witnessed negotiations that shaped the fate of dynasties. The flow of taxation and the exchange of secrets bred in distant kingdoms. Walking among the sun-struck ruins, mosques with empty doorways, stone warehouses faded by time, you find evidence of deliberate planning. Zeila was fortified. Watchtowers stood guard over tiny safe passages that allowed only the trusted through, protecting both the city's treasures and its sense of sovereignty. The narrow coastal plain dictated the layout. Geography ensured that every approach was strategic. The city drew its strength from being inevitable. To bypass Zeila meant risking impassable terrain or hostile rivals. Yet even gates can become vulnerable. As trade winds shifted and new harbors rose, Zeila's fortunes waned. Routes changed, silting up old anchorages. Hurricanes battered the coast. Attention moved further east to busier ports, leaving Zeila to fade quietly into obscurity. What lingers is not regret, but resilience, remnants of thick-walled structures and the spirit of a place shaped by centuries of adaptation. As evening falls, the wind carries the scent of dry earth and briny sea. You look north toward the mountains, tracing the old caravan trails with your eyes, and sense that Zeila was never just a port. It was a gateway, chosen by nature, built by ambition, sustained for generations by the ceaseless march of traders and travelers. The lesson Zeila offers to any explorer is simple and profound. True power does not always reside in strength or in splendor, but in position, in knowing how to turn geography into opportunity, in being the unavoidable place where stories, fortunes, and destinies cross. As darkness approaches and the city slips into quiet memory, you hear the call to continue, to seek out new thresholds where the journey resumes and another secret waits to be unlocked, deep within the ever-shifting web of forgotten worlds. Night falls softly now, and as I close my field journal, the memory of every port lingers like the salt taste of distant tides. We began on wind-swept coastlines where light first flickered across waves and ended among sun-bleached stones at the world's forgotten corners. Each city was a gate, each harbor a riddle, and every journey left behind a trail of echoes that refused to settle. Traveling through 15 ancient ports, I learned that geography is more than mere backdrop. It is a living force, shaping destinies in silence. Alexandria drew power from river and sea, while Carthage molded ambition out of rivalry and defense. Tyre wagered everything on half an island, and Ephesus learned the pain of waiting for the tides to return. Antioch became a handshake, Petra a secret. Ostia adapted to the whims of a river that gave and took in equal measure, and Mogadishu danced to the pulse of monsoons few could predict. Guangzhou thrived with cautious openness. Corinth invented a way to cheat the sea. Adulis braced itself where Africa fed empires. Venice teetered on the lagoon's edge, turning water into wealth. And Zeila stood as a silent reminder of opportunity shaped by the inevitable paths of land and sea. What binds them all is not just rock or mortar, nor the faded names carved on old maps. It is the relentless drive to seek advantage, to endure, to build something lasting from the raw materials of environment and imagination. These harbors required risk, they rewarded vision, They demanded that a city not just exist, but listen. To wind, to water, to the restless movement of people and ideas that never quite stand still. Not every city flourished forever. Some are rubble now, some veiled in mud or drifted sand, some remembered only in legend. But their lessons endure, that fortune follows those who can read the horizon, and that every crossroad, however hidden, still shapes the world. As the stars rise above the last harbor and the night grows deep, I remind myself that exploration does not end here. History does not whisper, it waits. And for those curious and willing to listen, the journey always beckons, just beyond the edge of the map, somewhere in the shadow between memory and the tides.